Hello and welcome into episode 4 of Snakes Territory. I'm your host, Jesse Friedman. Today, once again, joined by Jack Summers from Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. Jack, you're back from New Orleans. How we doing?
All right, had a send-off crawfish boil, which was a lot of fun. Have you ever eaten crawfish? They're pretty
I
messy, but they're pretty awesome.
I've never had crawfish, and I'm not sure I ever want to, Jack. But I'm glad you enjoyed your experience. Just so everyone knows, we are recording this episode entirely too early in the morning. Jack is much more of a morning person than I am, so if what I say is only like half coherent, then that's my excuse. I just want to make that clear on the front end. But we're going to talk about some Diamondbacks baseball as they lost a 3-game series to the Washington Nationals over the weekend. Jack, obviously not the outcome that you were looking for against a Nats team that only came in with one victory. Corbin Burnes was kind of the story of the game on Sunday. He struggled in that one, really two starts from him that were neither of which was all that great. And particularly this one, Corbin Burnes, 5 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs allowed, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. What were your thoughts on Burnes' performance yesterday?
The cutter command was first and foremost. Early on in the game, I think his ball to strike ratio was 50-50, and it was probably even worse than that on the cutter. He
Yeah.
also hit 2 batters. In addition to those 4 walks, he hit a couple guys. And he himself is very frustrated with it, obviously. That's the main crux of it. It's just that simple. He wasn't putting the ball where he needed to. He couldn't locate the pitch. He went through a long spate last year with the cutter where it wasn't working for him, and he got in the lab and kind of fixed it. And his post-outing comments were back to the drawing board. So he knows what he's got to do. I'm pretty confident he'll figure it out. But one thing I found interesting was so far in 2 starts this year, he's thrown that cutter 66% of the time.
Yeah.
Usually it's in the low to mid 50s. Like he's not using hardly any of his secondaries. And so if you're going to use one pitch 2/3 of the time and it's not working for you, you're going to run into trouble. So it's not just the cutter. He's got to get the other pitches dialed in. He's not using the hard slider that he was having some success with last year. I think he's threw like 7 of them yesterday or
Right.
something. So he needs to balance things out.
That was I had the exact same note written down. Yeah, he's at 66, about 66% cutter usage. It was almost the exact same number in both starts, right at 66%. He's made 126 starts since the start of the 2021 season, and that cutter usage is 5th and 6th highest out of those 126. So,
Right.
yeah, this is not. It's certainly the cutter is a really, really big pitch for Corbin Burnes, but it's not usually this big. And to me, watching that game yesterday, Jack, it felt like he wasn't able to place the pitch where he wanted to, but he felt the need to just keep going back to it until he eventually figured it out. And I think that's why the cutter usage soared as high as it did. Was he was just out there like, no, I am going to keep throwing this pitch over and over and over again until I finally am able to land it for a strike. And toward the end of the start, it felt like he had kind of figured some things out, that he was at least moving in the right direction. So we'll kind of see where that goes moving forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't panic over Corbin Burnes struggling for a couple of starts. It's kind of funny to watch on social media the meltdowns over, 2 bad games or a 5-5 record with a 3-3 road trip and all that. But it's slightly concerning only because he lost the feel for the cutter for such a long period last year. And it
Sure.
really took like August and September for him to figure it out and get it going again. And so you hope it's not a longer stretch like that where, he's kind of iffy for 3 months and then all of a sudden rips off a dozen good starts. I mean, we need a little bit more consistency from him to stabilize this rotation.
He was at 54 pitches through 2 innings yesterday. And yeah, Tom Candiotti on the broadcast, he explained it as Nolan Ryan without his fastball, is what Corbin Burnes was like yesterday without his cutter. Which, yeah, you can sort of see the analogy there. That's a really really big pitch for him. I am with you that he has a wide enough pitch arsenal that he probably doesn't need to throw that pitch close to 70% of the time on a day where it isn't really working. But it is such a big pitch for him, and obviously he really wants to find the feel for that pitch again. So yeah, we'll see if Corbin Burnes is able to do that. I'm with you where I'm not particularly concerned at this stage in the season.
I lost your sound.
There we go. Am I back? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, back. Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah. So notes from that game on Sunday: Diamondbacks lose 5-4. It was the second consecutive game where they had the tying run on base in the ninth inning against Kyle Finnegan, but were unable to get over the hump and find a way to tie the game. Jack, other notables in this one: Jose Herrera did hit a home run early on in this game. I know there was a bit of an uproar on social media over the Diamondback or Torey Lovullo pinch hitting for Jose Herrera after he had homered earlier in the game. Corbin Carroll had another good game, 3 for 5 with a double and a triple. Pavin Smith also continuing to be productive. He was 2 for 3 in this one. But again, the Diamondbacks ultimately fall short.
Melting down over Jose Herrera being pinch hit for is like peak Twitter.
I think that's pretty fair. Yeah, and not to say that Torey has necessarily pushed all of the right buttons in every single game so far, but yeah, for people who are complaining about that one, like I don't think you're going to look at 1 week of sample with Jake McCarthy. We'll talk more about him later in the show. And one really good game for Jose Herrera as reason in and of itself that, like, okay, we should throw out what the numbers from the last 3 years say, and we should absolutely go with Jose Herrera over Jake McCarthy. So yeah, I had a hard time taking any of that seriously, Jack.
Yeah. Taking the whole bigger picture on that kind of question, it's very difficult, especially early in the season, to tease out when you want to go by like most recent results and who's hot and who's not versus, like you said, 2, 3 years of data and information. It's so easy to get caught up in recency bias and just what's happened in the last few days. And we all do it. I'm just as susceptible to that fault as anybody else. But at the end of the day, the team has to make their best decisions based on a larger data set and a larger scope of experience. It's not only about who's hitting well the last 3 games. It's about who's faced who before, what type of pitch the pitcher throws. This guy's hits balls in this zone, and that pitcher throws to that zone all the time. That kind of thing. So it really is. We don't have 1/10 the information that they have, and so it's really important to keep that in mind.
And beyond that, I mean, even the information that we do have, like, Jose Herrera the last few years offensively, the track record between him and Jake McCarthy, right? Like it isn't particularly close at this point. So, yeah, I don't blame Sunday's loss on Torey Lovullo exactly, but it was still a tough one, for the D-backs to lose, and obviously Corbin Burnes is sort of. He was kind of the story in that game, just not really able to figure out that cutter command, as we said earlier. And I think I am not concerned about Burnes really at all, primarily because his stuff still looks good. Like the cutter still looks like a pretty good pitch. I know the movement is maybe not quite where it's been at its peak, but the cutter is still a pretty darn good looking pitch right now. And it's really hard for me to believe that Corbin Burnes is just going to keep spraying it around and not ultimately figure out how to command that again.
Well, when I see him tomorrow, later today, I'll definitely try to ask him the question you brought up, which is, were you just trying to power through it and figure out the pitch? And we're going to have that conversation to see what he's thinking about that. The other thing about, 2 straight games ending on a replay.
Yeah.
You
It was
know,
worth a shot,
Alec,
right?
Well, I mean, Alec Thomas was just barely out, on that stolen base attempt in game two. And then, of course, Grichuk, if his foot hits the front of the bag instead of a little bit in the middle, he's probably safe.
Right.
So it's a game of inches, literally. And it didn't go their way. Of their five losses, three of the losses are by one run, and one other is by two runs. So you can say, hey, it's just that's baseball. 3-3 road trip. You can't complain when you go back east. On the other hand, as everybody is constantly reminded, they missed the playoffs by one game last year. So not
Right.
winning these games or any of an extra game here or there. I mean, if they came home 6-4, how would everybody feel? Right? If they won, if they go 4-2 in a road trip and they're 6-4 to start the season, I think it's like a completely different conversation. We're talking about one game, so I don't think we need to kind of go off the rails because they lost a couple of tough games against a generally considered weaker opponent.
I don't know, Jack. If you looked at the NL West standings, the D-backs about at the current pace, the D-backs would be, about 25 games out of first place if they continue to play this way for a few more weeks. So,
Well, don't get me started on their playoff odds drop. I mean, I'll get in trouble with our good buddy Steve Gilbert if I do that.
yes, you will. Yes, you absolutely will. Yeah, we're not necessarily going to dive too far into this, but I will say just real quick that the Giants are 8-1 to start the season. The Dodgers are 9-2. The Padres are 8-2. I still don't really find any of those as being big reasons to be all that concerned 10 games into the season. But yeah, the Diamondbacks are a few games out of first place already, which is pretty wild. The NL West has been very much as advertised, maybe even more difficult than we expected so far this season. Obviously, the season. Jack, getting back into some storylines from the series as a whole. Eduardo Rodriguez pitched in the Saturday game. He had a really interesting start where he allowed 4 runs in 5 innings, but he also had 12 strikeouts, which was pretty impressive. I guess what stood out to you about him in that Saturday game?
Alex D'Agostino, one of the writers at my site, he said, I don't understand this version of Eduardo Rodriguez. Like, where's the soft contact? You know,
Right.
coming in, it wasn't that many strikeouts, but it was a lot of soft contact, and it's just a very confusing version. Obviously, his changeup was working great. He was getting a ton of swing and miss. He was really impressive, and he was definitely unlucky to give up that fourth run. That could have
Yeah.
been prevented. So it could have been a much better pitching line. A couple balls go his way. The Josh Bell triple,
Yeah.
that was quite the thing. Lourdes has just got to stop that ball and turn it into a single. So that game could have again gone the other way. I think he looks pretty good actually. He looks even better than I expected he would coming into the season. So I'm not worried at all about him right now. If he keeps getting this much swing and miss on his changeup, I mean, obviously he's not going to strike out 12 guys in 5 innings every time. But it will be interesting to see if he's able to start getting a little bit weaker contact too, because when they are hitting him, they're hitting him pretty hard.
Yeah, it was. You're right. This is not a version of Eduardo Rodriguez that we're particularly used to. I think a lot of I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think a lot of the swing and miss came on his four seam fastball. That pitch seemed
Yep.
to be working really well. There was some swing and miss on the changeup as well. Diamondbacks pitchers in the series as a whole just got totally rocked in the first inning. You see Brandon Pfaadt's final line: 6 innings, 4 runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts. But Pfaadt allowed 3 runs in the first inning as well. Rodriguez allowed 3 runs in the first inning. Corbin Burnes allowed 2 runs in the first inning. So all in all, in those 3 games, Diamondbacks pitchers allowed 8 for first inning runs combined, which is it's pretty tough to win baseball games that way. But going back to Erod, I'm with you, Jack. Where again, I'm not really all that concerned about him after these first 2 starts, even though his ERA doesn't look great. He was 91 to 94 with his 4-seamer in that game. He averaged about 93, which is really above what we've seen in recent years. So I think the stuff looks pretty darn good. Maybe there's another gear to be reached with some of the secondary stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I think people might think we're crazy here, Jack, but I'm not. I'm not particularly concerned about really any of the starters who are struggling right now.
Um, we'll talk about Merrill later. I'm a little concerned about
Sure,
him.
sure.
uh, Brandon Pfaadt, I mean, it's just 3 home runs.
Yeah.
That's somehow, some way that's got to stop. He's got to find a way to limit the long ball if he's going to reach that next level. I mean, he's got everything else. He's got great movement on his pitches. He's generally has really good command, a fantastic strikeout to walk ratios. I mean, he's the total package. He can go deep into games. The long ball just hurts him too often. It's just that simple. And I don't know the answer. Other than command the ball on the edge of the zone a little better. Don't leave him in the middle. But sometimes it's a hard game, right? It's hard to put the ball exactly where you want every time. And in his case, when he leaves it out there, it gets it pretty hard. So dialing in that command for him is going to be key going forward. We just can't see this many home runs continue if he's going to be successful to the degree that we expect out of him.
Another storyline from the weekend, I guess this is new since we last spoke, Jack, is that Ketel Marte is now on the injured list with a left hamstring strain. The Diamondbacks made the decision to bring in Tim Tawa from AAA, who's put up some pretty impressive numbers the past couple years down in the upper levels of the minors. He's played basically every single position. I think he has literally played every position except for pitcher and catcher, if I'm not mistaken. So
Right.
there's some utility player value there for sure. Tim Tawa in his very first at bat on Saturday got his first big league hit out of the way. And that's always a fun thing to see. This is a guy who was an 11th round draft pick in 2021 out of Stanford, and he is risen up here through the Diamondback system, and we'll see where his career goes from here. But I think it can be easy to miss just how cool and how fun it is when a player comes up and has a moment like that.
The thing about Tower coming into the season was his batted ball metrics, his exit velocities, hard hit rates, all of that stuff was as good or better than Adrian Del Castillo's and Pavin Smith's last year. I mean, the three of them kind of were at the top of the leaderboard for the Reno Aces. So we always tend to discount a little bit what we see coming out of Reno, and obviously, 1,000 OPS in Reno translates to about 700 in major leagues, uh, apparently.
Yeah.
But in his case, I mean, there was nothing fluky about what he did last year. Part of the time was Amarillo. We don't have all those underlying metrics from Amarillo, but what we saw out of Reno really kind of made me excited. But because of his age, he doesn't show up on the prospect list. But I thought that this guy's the real deal as far as being a major league quality player right now. So did the Diamondbacks. They protected him from the Rule 5, put him on a 40-man roster, and here he is. The way he started the season, we write these Reno Aces and minor league recaps over on our website all the time, and he featured in the first 3 games because he was just killing the ball right out of the gate. So not a surprise that he's here. A lot of people, I know you discussed with Nick why Tawa and not Lawler, and
Yeah.
but this didn't surprise me at all that they would go this route.
His numbers in Reno to start the year, you're very right. I know it's 26 plate appearances, but he hit 391, 462, 957, and he did not strike out in those 26 plate appearances. He had 3 walks and 0 strikeouts. So yes, the numbers are Reno numbers, but these are pretty impressive Reno numbers. So, there's a reason Tim Tawa is here in the big leagues for sure, and fun moment for him and his family on Saturday. I know he had his first big league RBI in that game, his first big league run scored. Maybe he'll knock out his first big league home run here as well before too long. So, fun story there. Last thing on this show, and we'll stick here for a while. We've now played 10 games, Jack, and it's a small sample. Like no one's reading all that much into 10 games, or at least you shouldn't be reading all that much into 10 games. There are some trends that have probably emerged through 10 games that we'll look back on at the end of 162 and be like, oh yeah, that did not actually go that way at all. But I think it is still at the 10-game mark, kind of an interesting point to just sort of take a step back and look at some things that we've noticed here so far. Not that all of these storylines are necessarily going to hold throughout the season, but I think there's a decent chance that some of them will. So we'll start on the positive side here, Jack. I guess I'll pitch it over to you. What's something on the positive side for the Diamondbacks this season that has kind of stood out to you so far?
Well, obviously, Corbin Carroll playing at an MVP level to
Yeah.
start the year is great to see, especially after the start he had last year. The changes that he made to his batting stance is clearly allowing him to cover pitches high in the strike zone, and it's just making him really hard to pitch to. So, he's starting off the year, he's hitting 282, but his OPS is over 1,000. He's got 3 homers, 3 doubles, a triple. I mean, he's just smoking the ball. 183 OPS plus, pretty impressive stuff. So obviously he's probably not going to post 1,000 OPS for the full season, but Corbin Carroll's clearly back to being the type of dynamic player that we know he can be, and especially with Cattell hurt here, he needs to play at close to an MVP level, and he's doing it right now. So that's fantastic to see. I mean, that's first and foremost. That's at the top of my mind.
Yeah, I texted you yesterday something like I think Corbin Carroll might finish like high in MVP voting this year. And again, it's sort of crazy to be thinking these things 10 games into the season, but just the hitter, the caliber of hitter that we have seen so far is completely different than what we saw at the beginning of last year. I even think he looks better than he did really at any point in the second half. Like he is just consistently destroying the baseball. You look at his baseball savant page right now, he has an expected batting average of 334, an expected slugging percentage of 755. His average exit velo is over 95 miles an hour. These are numbers that I don't know if we've ever seen from Corbin Carroll, frankly, even over a 10-game stretch. So I'm with you there. Really, really impressive stuff. Offensively, Jack, some other names that stand out to me. Alec Thomas has looked pretty good. It's a really, really small sample. I'm not reading quite as much necessarily into what I see there, but he's put some pretty good swings on balls. There was a line drive into where he took the ball to the opposite field in the game yesterday that was impressive, something we don't see from him a ton. He's 8 for 21 to start the season with a 962 OPS. So the question with him is always, does this have staying power? Is this going to be the year where Alec Thomas can really turn things around and consistently be a productive offensive player? Jury's still out on that, but he's off to a good start.
That's exactly what they need out of him. A few less 4-3s and a few more line drives, and apparently that's where he's at the moment. We'll have to see how well he's able to maintain it, and long term, we'll have to see if he's able to get more plate appearances against left-hand pitching, and if he's going to be able to handle that. Alec Thomas as an everyday player, if you favor the defense, and a lot of people do, and want to see him out there every single day, you have to keep your eye on the long-term picture of how he's doing against lefties. But right now, he's smoking the ball. He's hitting the ball really hard, and it's great to see. And he's such a nice guy, and he went through such a tough time last year, so it's especially gratifying to just see him have a little bit of success here to get going early in the season.
Pavin Smith is another name that comes to mind for me. He's 7 for 20 to start the year. That's a 350 batting average. He has a 958 OPS. Again, I think you're definitely too small of a sample here to really be drawing any firm conclusions. But the Diamondbacks were going to ask a lot of Pavin Smith this year, right? They didn't bring back Jock Peterson. So in essence, their replacement for Jock Peterson was Pavin Smith. And obviously Jock was a huge part of this offense a year ago. And so far, Pavin has kind of lived up to that. Like he's been really, really productive. We've seen Torey Lovullo use him right in the middle of the lineup against right-handed pitching. And so far he's been deserving of that.
Yeah, it's mostly on base percentage. I mean, he's got a 458 OBP. He's got 7 hits and 4 walks, right? So that's what we're seeing so far. I would like to see, the power develop. He's got 3 doubles, but he hasn't homered yet. He's got 10 strikeouts. So again, this is all such small sample size stuff. But the bottom line is, you know that he's going to give you a decent at bat. He's going to look for pitches in the zone that he can handle, and that's clearly showing through his first 9 games. And that's what you expect out of him. I don't expect a 350 batting average, but at the same time, if he's giving you that kind of professional at bat in the middle of the order, he may not ever give you the kind of power that Jock Peterson gave you, but it's still going to be an important piece of the middle of the lineup. Early in the year, I think in spring training, we were talking to Corey, and I asked him. I said, "Is Pavin one of the most key hitters for your lineup?" Of course, Corey didn't want to, excuse me, didn't want to focus in on one player too much, but he acknowledged the importance of getting that kind of professional at bat in the middle of the order.
Pavin has absolutely delivered that so far. Offensively, another name that stands out for me is Randall Grichuk. He doesn't have a 1,200 OPS or something, but he's been solid. And you can see once again that having Randall Grichuk on this roster just makes a lot of sense. We've seen him come through in big spots against left-handed relievers several times already this season. And you might have the makings here, Jack, of a pretty solid platoon in the DH role, or obviously these guys are going to play in the field a little bit sometimes too, but Randall Grichuk and Pavin Smith, like maybe that actually is one of the better DH platoons in baseball. That would be really big for this team.
It really wouldn't surprise me to see the D-backs end up at over 800 OPS for the full season. I mean, that I don't know if you can project that. That's probably not what the projections have, but it's probably not too far off. I mean, between the two of them, they're probably both projected to be, in the mid-high 700s. So if they can just exceed that a little bit, if Torrey's able to up that platoon advantage percentage just a little bit here and there with those two guys, over 800 OPS for the full year, very doable. And so the early going is certainly showing encouraging signs in that direction.
Justin Martinez, Jack, on Friday threw one of the nastiest pitches that I've ever seen. He threw a splitter against Nathaniel Lowe, and Nathaniel Lowe just looked absolutely dumbfounded after swinging and missing at this pitch. J-Mart has looked really good so far this season. He obviously signed the extension over the offseason. You kind of wondered how he might react to that. But so far, super small sample, but 3 2/3 innings. He's allowed 3 hits, no runs, no walks, 6 strikeouts. So he's been about as good as you can imagine. The other guy out of the bullpen I'll mention real quick is Shelby Miller. I talked about Shelby with Nick over the weekend, but Shelby... I know people aren't going to like it that I say this, but Shelby has not allowed a hit so far in 2025 and has 1 walk and 5 strikeouts and 5 innings pitched, no runs allowed. So those two guys have looked outstanding out of the bullpen.
Yeah, by the way, for our listeners, if you haven't had a chance to go back and listen to the episode from Saturday with Nick, definitely recommend going back and checking it out, because he has a perspective on a fellow like Shelby because he was here. He was covering the team as a beat writer back when Shelby was first traded here and everything that he went through, and his insights into how Shelby's grown and his maturity and not only the pitcher, but the person he's become, really worth listening to. So go back and check out that Saturday episode too, folks.
Moving on to some negative trends here over the first 10 games, which D-backs are 5-5. Obviously, there's some positives and some negatives here. The starting rotation is what everyone's talking about right now, Jack. The Diamondbacks have a 5.96 team ERA as far as the starting rotation is concerned. I tweeted out everyone's numbers through their first 2 starts, and yeah, I think it's a little crazy to be all that critical about just 2 starts to open the season. But the reality, Jack, is that this baseball team so far has looked quite a bit like the one we saw a year ago, where the starting pitching has been rather poor and the offense has been quite good. And the two have kind of balanced out and created a 500 baseball team so far.
Yeah, the thing that you got to be a little concerned about is even like the FIP is 5.36, the XFIP is 4.17. I mean, it's not like they've just been
Yeah.
unlucky. It's a little concerning just in the aggregate that they're not turning that around just yet. But again, it's 10 games. It's 1/16 of the season. It's two turns through the rotation. How many teams you go through the season and all of a sudden they have, a bad week or a bad 10 days. It happens all the time. If this doesn't turn around over the next, week to 10 days, and then it's really going to be a story. Then you can say 10 games from now, if they're still 26 in the league and starting pitching, then it's trend. So
Uh,
hopefully they flip it.
Yeah, I think this can lend some helpful perspective on this topic. Currently, the New York Mets have the best starting pitching ERA in all of baseball. Which I mean, the Mets I don't expect the Mets to maintain that at all. But they at least have some guys, I guess. The Colorado Rockies are second, Jack. The Colorado Rockies have a 2.61 team starting pitching ERA through I guess for them it's 9 games. So yeah, not necessarily putting a ton of stock into these numbers, but I'm with you that it's not like they've just gotten super unlucky. The quality has genuinely been pretty poor. They have racked up a decent number of strikeouts, 57 strikeouts and 51 in the third innings. A lot of that is Zach Gallen and Eduardo Rodriguez, both of whom I think have 17 combined in their first 2 starts. But a number that stands out to me for them is the number 12, which is the number of home runs that the Diamondback starters have allowed so far. 12 homers and 51 in the third innings. That's a pretty big number.
Absolutely. And again, that goes back to command, being able to put the ball where you want it. And they're all having that issue to varying degrees. So hopefully they get it dialed in. One thing that I've always noticed with the Diamondbacks is every spring training, they're always a little behind most of the other teams in how quickly they get pitchers stretched out to 75, 85, and 90 pitches. It seems like every time in spring training, the Diamondbacks pitchers are, oh, they're going to go 2 up downs. Oh, they're going to go 3 up downs. And meanwhile, the other team starters going 4 innings already.
Sure.
That and I notice this almost every year. And again, I asked Tori about it, and he kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit. He didn't really want to acknowledge that that was the fact, but it's clearly planned because they do it this way every single year. I wonder if they should, and the only one that didn't was Burnes, ironically, right, because of what happened with him getting pushed out to the 5th start of the year. I wonder if they need to kind of advance that a little bit more quickly going forward in spring. I think it might help with early season command issues from their starting pitchers.
That's a good point. Yeah, other things that stand out here, I guess Jake McCarthy has had not a great start to the season. He's still looking for his first hit. He's 0 for 19. Yeah, it's a small sample, Jack, but 0 for 19 is that does stand out a little bit. Looking through all the stats, what's your concern level with Jake McCarthy so far?
I mean, I haven't checked out honestly his ex WOBA and all of the expected
It's
stats.
pretty
So
it's pretty pretty low. It's a very blue baseball savant page as of right now. I can pull it up as you're talking.
yeah, I think his swing hasn't looked great. I mean, that's the bottom line, and he's swinging and misses a lot as well. The thing that's a little scary here, he's one plate appearance away from tying the franchise record for most hitless plate appearances. Uh, Diamondbacks fans may remember Domingo Labor in 2021. He went 0 for 22 with 1 walk to start the season through his first 11 games. Jake McCarthy through 7 games, 22 plate appearances, hitless in 19 at bats, like you said, 2 walks, 1 sacrifice fly. There's got to be a level of concern there. I mean, this is not an easy situation for Jake, especially with Alex starting off hot. Grichuk may start even seeing some more, at bats versus right hand pitching if this continues with Jake. So his situation is beginning to get a bit tenuous, I would guess.
Yeah, looking at the baseball savant numbers again, it's such a small sample, but yeah, he hasn't. I don't think the narrative could be that he's been unlucky so far, at least not to a significant degree. He has a 124 expected batting average, a 185 expected slug. The average exit velo is 82.5. So yeah, he just isn't really making any compelling contact. He goes out and has two really good games. Like suddenly these numbers flip, and suddenly the numbers start to look a little more like Jake McCarthy. So I think it's too early to be all that concerned there. But it is interesting, Jack, how it always feels like if Alek Thomas is going well, then Jake McCarthy like almost cannot be, and if Jake McCarthy is going well, then Alek Thomas like must be hurt or something. That's just sort of the way that things have gone the last couple of years, and here we are again. Alek has been really really good to start the year, and Jake has just not really found a rhythm at the plate yet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on a homestand. One thing to remember is the team in general only hit 212 in the road trip. Yankee Stadium, Nationals Park, East Coast, bad weather. They went on the road batting 329 as a team. Now it's probably down to, I don't know what, 250 something, 261. So, again, everything is small sample size is really important that we resist the temptation to overanalyze statistically what's going on. But visually, when you watch the at-bats, they just don't look great.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Well, the Diamondbacks go from facing the Washington Nationals on the road to facing the Baltimore Orioles at home. The Orioles, of course, are a good baseball team with postseason aspirations. They are not off to the best of starts so far in 2025. They enter this series against the Diamondbacks with a 4-6 record. So they're actually a game behind where the D-backs are right now. Pitching matchups, Jack, we have Zach Eflin going against Zach Gallen on Monday night, tonight. Charlie Morton against Merrill Kelly in the second game of this series, and then Dean Kramer against Brandon Pfaadt in the finale of this 3-game set. So yeah, those are the pitching matchups. Not a great start so far for the Orioles, but I guess before the Nationals series, you said that the Nationals record was not reflective of their true talent level, and I guess that sort of proved to be the case, as the Nationals took 2 out of 3, and you could say the same thing about the Orioles. They're a better, more talented baseball team than that 4-6 record would indicate for sure.
Absolutely. Look, the Orioles are going to be right at or near the top the AL East by the time the season's over. I mean, they're going to win 85 to 95 games, and they're going to be right in the thick of it. Interesting thing about this series coming up is 3 straight right-handed starters. I'm guessing that you'll see Grichuk actually get a start maybe in the outfield in Game 2 against Charlie Morton. He's got some pretty good numbers against him in his career. They're not going to want to completely sit Grichuk the entire 3-game series, despite the lack of a lefty starting the game. Obviously, in the other 2 games, he can come in as a pinch hitter when and as needed. But don't be shocked if you see him in the lineup on Game 2 on Tuesday. The other thing I'd say is just in general, we're going to get to see Gunnar Henderson. He's back from injury. He's only played 3 games so far. He's not done very well to start the year, so hopefully he doesn't quite find his footing right out of the gate. But Gunnar Henderson is an MVP candidate for the next 10 years. So we'll see what we get. Fans are going to get a chance to see one of the best young players in the game.
Yeah, it should be fun to see the Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson showdown of sorts. Obviously, both of those guys unanimous Rookie of the Year winners a couple years ago. Last season, Gunnar really took the next step and, as you said, became, just had an outstanding year. Probably would have won the MVP in some seasons where Bobby Witt Jr. and Aaron Judge weren't doing what they did a season ago. But yes, he is a fantastic player, and I imagine he'll find his way here before too long. But that is all that we have here for this 4th edition of Snakes Territory. Again, we really appreciate you being with us. If you haven't already, be sure to find us on social media. You can find me at Jesse N. Friedman over on X, and you can find Jack at Shoe Wizard 59. Our show you can find at Snakes Territory, where we're going to try to post some clips from the show. So be sure to follow us there. You'll see us in your feed every now and then. Jack does an outstanding job covering the Diamondbacks over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. So be sure to find the work not only of himself but of his entire team of writers over there. It's si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. And finally, we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think of the show, what you think of any of the things that we've discussed on the episode. If you like the video, that also helps us out in the algorithm. And we also really appreciate it over on the podcast side if you'd rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. Jack, anything else before we say goodbye?
No, I think I'm going to go back to bed soon.
I would like to do the same. But I don't think
you
I
tend to get a little sleep deprived when you spend a week in New Orleans.
You wouldn't be. You're probably not the first. That's fair. Well, we appreciate you all joining us once again, and we'll be back here on Snakes Territory very, very soon.